Good afternoon and good morning to our West Coast listeners. My name is Juan Thomas, and I have the honor of serving this year as the immediate past chair of the ABA Civil Rights and Social Justice section. And it is my high honor to introduce our new chair, Robin Runge of Washington, D.C. And Robin, welcome. And first, I want to thank you for continuing this chair chat. It's now on Thursdays. And according to what you have shared with us, we're going to continue this every other week, so twice a month. So I want to thank you for doing that and just welcome. And I am officially passing this over to you. That's why I'm on vacation with a beach view in my background and dressed as though I'm ready to drink my favorite drink. But until I do that, I wanted to talk to you and thank you for being with us and welcome you to the chair seat and the chair chat.
Thank you for the welcome.
Robin, could you first, as we kick off the new bar year, tell us about yourself and your background?
Sure. As you said, I live in Washington, D.C. I have been a lawyer for 25 years, but I, unlike many of my friends, did not think I was going to be a lawyer for a long time. I grew up in a small town outside of St. Louis in Southern Illinois in the floodplain of the Mississippi with about 15,000 folks. And there weren't a lot of lawyers there, but I saw them on TV. And so I did not take a direct route to this practice. I actually became a lawyer because after I graduated from law school at Wellesley College in Boston, Massachusetts, I worked at a law firm that had a pro bono practice representing survivors of domestic violence. The law firm still exists in Vince Levin. It's a wonderful firm, and they were and still are actually a leader on addressing issues of domestic violence. And I was teamed with lawyers there through the pro bono program representing survivors seeking protection orders. And it was really that experience that propelled me forward in deciding to go to law school. I saw there was an incredible need in the community. There were very few full-time lawyers who were working on domestic violence issues at the time, and there just was an incredible need in the community. And so it really led me to move down to Washington, D.C. and eventually go to law school in Washington, specifically to serve my community. Within that, particularly low-income women of color who were experiencing domestic and sexual violence. And I, by the time started law school, had been volunteering at battered women's shelters and in DC Superior Court and elsewhere for several years, providing assistance and listening to the needs of survivors. And what they shared with me, among many things, they taught me many things, including improving my knitting and how to speak Spanish, was they helped me to understand the economic challenges that they faced, that they often were needing and wanting to work, but were either fired from their jobs because they missed work because of the abuse, or were forced to quit their jobs, sometimes actually because when they were supposed to be accessing services like going to court to get a protection order, it was at the same time they were supposed to be at work, and they would get fired for missing that day of work. And so I started to look around and ask, well, where are the employment lawyers? Where are the employment lawyers for this population of workers? And there weren't any. Everybody I talked to said the few lawyers who were providing services, so again, I need to remind everyone, this is the 1990s, who were providing services were family lawyers, very important, right? To get separation, divorce, and custody of children, or criminal attorneys, prosecutors, right, who were prosecuting domestic violence. Also incredibly important, I just need to say. But sadly, when I talked to employment lawyers and lawyers who specifically worked with women, they said to me, "Oh, well, we don't have to worry about that because survivors of domestic violence don't work." And I just remember being horrified. I didn't have any statistics, right? I mean, one, this is the classic thing, right? I had been working with survivors for years at this point, but I couldn't point to a data set, right, that said X percentage of survivors in the workplace or X percentage of workers are survivors. And so that was a challenge to me because I said, yeah, but I work with survivors and they tell me that they are losing their jobs, or they're telling me that they want to get jobs back. And so I actually went to law school to do that, to become that lawyer, to become the resource that I wish I had had when I was a volunteer on hotlines for survivors and when I was helping them get protection orders and they asked me very good questions and I didn't have the answers. And so I got a postgraduate fellowship to create the first, and to this date only, program in the country exclusively serving the employment needs of survivors of domestic and sexual violence, at what was then called the Employment Law Center, Legal Aid Society of San Francisco. And that really has been the heart and soul of my entire career. I am an employment lawyer, and I specialize in advocating for the rights of survivors of gender-based violence. And that is inclusive of sexual harassment, of sexual violence, at work or at home, right? Domestic violence. In fact, most of us who've experienced these abuses will tell you that we experience them everywhere. We experience them in our home. We experience them on the street corner. We experience them on the bus. We experience them at school. We experience them at work. And so I work in that community. And I've had the privilege of being a law professor on a full-time or part-time basis. I currently teach at George Washington University Law School, where I went to school, and I teach both a workers' rights clinic and a course on gender-based violence and harassment in the law. So you see, I continue to live in this in-between place, but I identify as a public servant. It is a privilege to be a lawyer. It is a privilege to serve my community, and I continue to ground myself in that. And part of my journey, in my extraordinarily long answer to your question, Juan, was finding a home with like-minded lawyers, right? Finding a home, regardless of what we do all day, like finding that place where we are all centered in that concept of service to justice. And that's what brought me to the Civil Rights and Social Justice section at the ABA.
Well, I can say, since I had a chance to work with you and get to know you over the years, I've seen your heart for social justice and public service. And I love it when I hear you say you've never billed a client.
That's right.
Because you've
I
always
have no idea what that would be like, and I don't want to know.
Because you've always been working in the public service sector. So we applaud you for your service and your heart. And I know you will lead us with that heart this year of public service. And we truly look forward to your leadership. And speaking of your leadership as chair, could you kind of share with us your involvement with the ABA and your journey in becoming chair of the section?
Absolutely. So I became a member of the section in 1997, which was the year I graduated from law school. I had a friend of a friend from law school who was on the staff of the section at the time reach out to me when I was in my postgraduate fellowship. It was an Equal Justice Works fellowship in San Francisco, and say, hey, have you thought about joining the section? And I honestly, until then, thought of the ABA as a place not for me. I'm just going to be transparent. You know what I mean? Like, it was for people who worked at big firms. It was just, it had a different image for me. And so I was really interested to learn that there was a place for people who were really dedicated to social justice issues and to civil rights. And so I did become a member. And then within months of that, I got a call asking me to contribute to the Human Rights Magazine, which is the flagship publication for the section, to write about the work I was doing representing survivors of domestic violence employment law cases. And the person who called me said, you know, I didn't even know this was a problem, right? And so this is important to share. And I remember thinking, I have no idea what I'm doing out here, and you want me to write an article for a national magazine. And it was really amazing. And so that started my journey. And I was a member for several years until I joined the staff of the ABA in 2003. I became the staff director for what was called at that time the Commission on Domestic Violence. It is now called the Commission on Domestic and Sexual Violence, which is great. I did that for 6 years, from 2003 to 2009. And it was I was the second ever director of the commission. It was a presidential commission, and I tripled the staff and the funding in those years, which was really a wonderful thing to be able to do. And then in 2009, I actually left to go into full-time teaching in the law. So I went and moved to where anyone would go, North Dakota. I moved to North Dakota and taught at the University of North Dakota School of Law. And I taught an employment and housing clinic, and I taught domestic violence law there, and learned actually, and I don't know if I've ever had an opportunity to share this in this forum or with you, Juan, but I learned in North Dakota that the ABA is very important there. It's actually really viewed as a star in the sky to shoot for, right? It's really viewed as a beacon and a place of leadership for all lawyers. And so it was great to come to North Dakota and become a member of the bar there and see that the members of the Supreme Court there, for example, all really held up the ABA and were active members, and all the faculty. I mean, it was a wonderful thing to see. And then I rejoined, my membership continued, but I joined a leadership position at the Commission on Homelessness and Poverty. I was a member of the Commission on Homelessness and Poverty. Yeah, starting in 2011. I had a 3-year term. And that was wonderful because, again, friends of mine from the public interest legal community reached out to me who were involved and said, you know, it would be great if Robin could join us. And so I did a 3-year stint there, and that started my reentry. And I started being able to attend meetings again more frequently and started coming back to my original home, frankly, the civil rights and social justice section in that period of time. And then not long after that, was fortunate enough to get involved as vice chair of the Commission on Women, the Committee on Women's Rights within the section. And I was a vice chair, and then I was a co-chair of the Committee on Women's Rights, and then was fortunate enough to be appointed to the council, and spent 3 years on the council. And when my 3rd year was coming to an end, put my name in the hat to become secretary. So I I guess you could say, Juan, I have a lot of experience in the
Yes, you
ABA,
do.
right? And I really see my year as chair as the ultimate way for me to give back to a community that has given to me. And I just hope that I can live up to the expectations.
Well, your last statement there kind of is a good segue to the next question I had for you, which is, how do you see your role as chair of the section? And then how do you see the role of the section in the larger context of the legal community, legal profession?
Yeah, so you're right. I foreshadowed my answer to the first part of that question. I really see myself as a leader among leaders, right? That it is a privilege and an honor that this amazing group of talented individuals has entrusted me with this leadership role. And I mean that. So I'm humbled by the privilege, and I really plan to spend my time making sure that I am not guessing what I should be doing, but asking, and asking again and again. Our executive committee members, our council members, and our section members, and our committee leadership. We have a wonderful, active section full of people who are working extremely hard to ensure access to justice, to ensure in this critical moment in time that civil rights, the rule of law, and social justice are not just things we say, but they have meaning. And ensuring that the role of lawyers remains central to these efforts, and the bar. So that's really how I view it, as a continuation of my service. I have had, and hope to continue to have, a wonderful career. And this is not a stepping stone. I'm not doing this on my way to something else. This is again a wonderful opportunity for to give back and to serve among leaders. I can't say that enough. I don't think I am smarter or have done more or have better ideas than anybody else. And so part of my work this year is to make sure that I take the time to listen and to lift up the leadership and the ideas, and take the guidance from the leadership of the section to make sure that we build from the great work that you and Beth and Wendy and others before you who held this position have done. So that's really important to me.
That's wonderful to hear. And I love you didn't say the word, but you're really a collaborative leader. You believe
Yes.
bringing people together and hearing
Yes.
all the voices.
Yeah, and I have to say, Juan, and this is, I think people may take different meanings from this, but I am a feminist leader. And what feminism means to me at its core is inclusion. Feminism means to me, not a hierarchy, that we all bring value to a space, and it has nothing to do with title, right? That everyone together needs to be heard, and we need to create spaces to make sure that everyone is heard, and not just heard, but, really listened to, right? And engaged with. So I've had the privilege of more recently in my career doing a lot of international work with low-wage workers in the global South, and really adopting an important approach, because I've been in a lot of spaces where I am the only white woman and the only person, actually only white person, and the only white person from the West invited into spaces with garment workers, agricultural workers, mine workers, who are sharing their experiences with gender-based violence and harassment. And they taught me what feminist leading looks like. And feminist leading means we're all in this together. And exactly, it's very collaborative. And I need to say this, does it take longer? Yes. Right? Is it a little, does it fit with our structures in the United States? No. But I would argue to you a lot of the ways, and this has been examined in the last few years with, I think, great depth because of the Floyd murder and the Breonna murder, and really having us grapple with our identities and how racism and sexism and patriarchy are really, it's in the, the air we breathe. I'm not pointing a finger at anybody, but it's how our whole world is structured, right, Juan? And so, like, if we know that, then the habits we formed about how we make decisions and how organizations are designed are based on that model. And so I am really not, I'm interested in new models that are reflective of the diversity of our section and the leadership of our section and the bar, right? So that gets to your question about what's the role of the section in the bar? Well, that is exactly it, is to remain the heart and the soul, to continue to hold ourselves accountable to our values, right? Around civil rights and social, what does that mean to say we're civil rights and social justice warriors? What does it mean to say we're inclusive? Really hold ourselves to that and examine how we do things, not just what we do, but how we do them. And often, as you know, the section is referred to as the heart and the soul of the ABA. And I absolutely feel like it is. I also feel like those of us who engage any of the part of our career on these issues are that to the profession. And so, but that's a big responsibility. And right, with privilege comes responsibility. So
that's right. And one of the vehicles that we used this past year, as you well know, was the chair chats that you are going to be taking over. What is your vision for the continuation of the chair chat? How do you see that these chair chats being used during your year as chair?
Yeah, so first I need to just pause and thank you. I have no idea how you came up with the idea of a chair chat. Maybe you could share that, but it's turned out to be such a wonderful, I think, cornerstone, not just to your chair, but I would say to the ABA as a whole, right? Really capitalizing on the fact that this forum, right, exists in space and time, that it's now a part of our DNA as a society in the United States about how we get information out, how people access information. And so it's just a great initiative that you started. And I am thrilled to be able to continue it. Now, as I have said to you one-on-one, there is no way I could do this every week. My day job and my family, would make that, would bark a little bit about that. I don't have that stamina or that time, but it is important enough that we spend some time, and again, showing my leadership style, talking to the leadership of the section and saying and asking. I didn't just decide this on my own, right? The executive committee, I talked to council members, I asked them, right? Like, is this working? Is this of value to the section? Everybody said yes. And then I said, well, how can we continue it? And I have to say, most people agreed. They're like, Robin, every week is a lot. But if you could continue to do it a couple of times a month, and you already referred to that, that's our plan, is to do 2 each month, that would be really powerful. And so I'm going to chair one chat a month where I will be interviewing someone. And then actually we're going to be calling upon our past chairs and our current leadership. This is something you've done, and ask them to chair the other chair chat for the month and really select a topic of great interest to them, reach out to someone in the community that they've always wanted to interview, and bring those voices into our space. And I'm really excited about that. I've already reached out to some of our past chairs, and they're thrilled to do this and to identify people. I won't give any names out because, like, you know, it's still happening right now. But to me, that is a part of my philosophy and my approach and my values, right? Lift up the amazing people around us who are the section. I am not the section. I am a representative of the section. And so I'm really excited about supporting that. And this is not, you know, not every single past chair is this going to be their cup of tea. And that's fine. And I think that's the point, is we want to offer it up. Because not everybody has your skill set, Juan. I'm not even quite sure that I have your skill set in this regard, but I'm going to give it a go. And really just continue some of the good things that you did, right? Identifying, having chats that align with specific themes for each month that we know that are out there to lift up particular issues. Also to be flexible, right? As big events occur, right? To identify current events that it would be helpful to have someone with expertise talk with us about their take on what's happening. I would love for some of those to be positive rather than negative.
Absolutely.
But lately I feel like that's hard, you know, like I really, really do. I feel like we bounce from crisis to crisis, but I would love if we had some positive legal news in the next year that we can also lift up. So yeah, so that's what my thoughts are.
It's a great model. And just, you know, you asked me, how did I come up with the idea? What I discovered during the pandemic, people really appreciated, you know, 15, 20 minutes of a conversation around a topic to kind of open up the door for them to maybe read or study that topic beyond the conversation. And so we call this a chair chat because it's really a chat. It's not a lecture.
Right.
It's not a speech. It's not a debate. It's really just a forum where people can hear about a topic. And then hopefully if it interests them, they can go and do further reading. All of the chair chats from last year are going to be on our section's YouTube station to refer back to. Hopefully that'll continue. So hopefully it'll become a library, a resource, if you will. So speaking of our section and becoming involved and learning about different topics and issues and lifting up different voices, what do you think of the critical issues facing this critical time that we're in? And why should people join the section, and how can they get involved?
Yeah, so there are so many. So I'm going to do what we lawyers do and caveat by saying first that these are not all of the issues, right? And I would argue to you that these are not in any particular order of importance. But because I don't know about everybody else, but I wake up every day, right? And focus on a different thing, right? And try to deepen my understanding, you know, and it's a challenge, right? And then I like meditate for 20 minutes, but because it's a lot. But I would say we're going into an election year, a presidential election year, and voting rights remains under assault. Like, it's just a sad reality. I think voting rights have been under assault my entire life. My father was a lawyer, and he worked for Bobby Kennedy doing voting rights work in the South. So I grew up in a house where by the time I was born, he was in private practice working for himself, but heard all of the stories about enforcing the Voting Rights Act many years ago. And I am sorry to say that the same issues he shared with me and the stories he talked to me about, the barriers to voting, his job was to go out and talk to mostly the Black men who had the guts to get in line to try to vote in Mississippi and Louisiana, knowing that they would probably be murdered for doing so, and suing the states for creating literacy barriers or, limiting the hours of registration to the point that only 3 people could get registered a day. I hope everyone understands that we are not far from there now. And we need to keep ensuring that everyone has equal access to voting. It is the cornerstone, one of the cornerstones of our democracy. The day my birthday year that I was eligible to vote, my father put me in the car and drove me out to get registered. It was that important in my household in Southern Illinois, where there were like 4 people of the party that my father was a member of. But it doesn't matter. The point is, it doesn't matter what party you're a member of, right? Or if you have to identify. The point is, right, the democracy only works if everyone has access to the vote, right? We cannot continue down a path where we're trying to rig our elections by limiting access to voting for certain populations. And this has been something the section has been a leader on. We have trained lawyers and allies to poll watch, right? And to provide other services. We're going to continue to do that. We have submitted amicus briefs in some of the key cases on these issues. We will continue to do that. I am sorry to say that I will expect that those issues will remain critical because those rights will continue to be under assault. I would say another set of issues is what I think of as my bodily autonomy, right? My right as a woman to do with my body whatever I choose, because I have the ability, the mind, the intelligence equal to anybody else. And that's all I want. One is I want to have the same rights that you do to be able to do with my body, right, what I need to. And there are many manifestations of this, but the most recent, of course, is the Dobbs decision, which I want to contextualize and say was one of several opinions in that Supreme Court year that really upended decades of precedents, which I think is also a key part of this, right, is really recognizing that we're in an interesting time. As I mentioned, I teach law. And how do you teach precedents now, right? I struggle with that, right? Because there was a time, right, where I would have said, oh, well, the Supreme Court's decided on that, right? You know what I mean? Like, that's done. No.
Now it's all upended, right?
It's all up in the air. But anyway, and so again, the section has taken a leadership role in addressing the impacts of the Dobbs decision, right? Leaving the decision to the states to decide about access to what I think of basic reproductive health care and human rights. I have had many friends who've sadly had very dangerous miscarriages late in pregnancy. And they themselves are now finding themselves unable to access any kind of services in certain states in this country. I mean, it's dire. So we again have been leaders. We have submitted amicus briefs, right? And we also have started, Araceli Munoz is going to be one of our co-chairs of this new initiative, right? To make sure that we have sufficient number of pro bono attorneys, right? Who are engaging in providing support to the existing services. So I just want to pause here and say it's so important for us at the ABA to remember, like, it's not just reproductive health rights, became an issue yesterday. Araceli's organization, right, the Center for Reproductive Rights, has been working on this for decades, and there are many other organizations. And our job is not to supplant that or to compete with them. Our job is to support them, right, and figure out how to do that and listen to them and have them tell us. And so I know that's the starting place for this new pro bono initiative, is really to come together with leaders who've been working on reproductive justice issues for a long time and have those folks tell us, how can the ABA help lead, right? What is our role? So those are 2 issues. And I would just say, a third is the most recent decision on affirmative action. In recent weeks, we've unfortunately seen that case, which was really specifically targeting about higher education, right? And saying affirmative action in higher education is unconstitutional. How or does that even, right, apply to diversity, equality, and inclusion programs in other settings, right? Whether it be law firms or elsewhere. And we sadly, in the last couple of weeks, I say sadly because it really concerns me, we've seen some of our leaders in the legal community, larger law firms, sued because they are maintaining those programs. And it's really important for us to continue to hold up the value of diversity, equality, and inclusion at this critical time and help people understand, right, how not to violate the law, but continue forward with these incredibly important initiatives. And I know the ABA is committed to that. Our president, Mary Smith, just issued a statement on this. So those are three topics, one that I would say I see continuing to be of a keen focus for the section, but not to the exclusion of anything else.
Right. Well, Madam Chair, as I officially pass the gavel virtually to you, from you to me, from me to you, rather.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I want to just ask you as chair, how do you encourage and how do you want people to get involved in our section this bar year and in the future?
Thank you for reminding me of the second part of your question. First, if you're not a member, if you're watching this and you're not a member, please join. There's never been a more exciting and important time to be a member of the section. And I want to just clarify, because sometimes there's confusion. You don't have to be a lawyer in the United States to become a member of the American Bar Association. You don't even have to be a law student, though law students are welcome too. You can be a law student, you can be a paralegal, you can be a judge, you can be any of those things in another country. We used to have a very sizable international membership of the association. And I know we still have a good membership, but I have allies and friends in all of those different communities, and I would love to have them join us in large numbers. So join the section. You can go to our website and you can find out information about how to join the section. You do need to join the ABA and then join the section, but it's not that complicated. And importantly, depending upon which of those groups I just named you're a member of or a part of, the rates are really different and actually all incredibly reasonable. We've really tried to look at barriers to entry, again, inclusiveness, and lower those to the best of our ability. So become a member. And then even if you're not ready to become a member yet, or if you have any questions, you don't have to be a member to call me up or text me or email me and say, hey, right, what are you doing on this?
Right.
And
You'll get a lot of those, trust me.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you have to know I'm going to urge you to become a member of the section, but I think it's really important for people to know that I welcome, and I may live to regret it, Juan, but I welcome those calls. The other thing I would just say is we work collaboratively within the ABA. This is one of our strengths, is that, in fact, I just saw one of my colleagues at GW Law School is one of the leaders in the criminal justice section. And he came across the room to me on Sunday at an event we were at and said, we love collaborating with you. You are such a leader. You recognize that your issues cross all of the other sections issues, real estate, health law, all of them. And we so appreciate that you see that and collaborate. And so that's the other thing I would say is maybe you're a member of, like I said, the tax section, and you're like, what, reach out. We have amazing folks who are active in the section with that expertise. So those are ways that I hope people will get involved.
Well, Robin, even though I am officially on vacation as chair of the section, please know that I'm always here to support you and the section. We look forward to your leadership. Thank you for all that you're going to do for us and for our profession. And we look forward to working with you over the next bar year. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Juan, again, for your leadership. Big shoes to fill.
You'll do just fine. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you in a few weeks on Thursday, and have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.